Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to the Daily Mastermind. I am your host, Sonny Von Cleveland. Aristotle said, virtues are formed in man by the doings of his actions. And Epictetus followed that by saying, capability is confirmed and grows in its corresponding action, walking by walking, running by running. Therefore, if you want to do something, make a habit of it. We are what we repeatedly do in life. We're discussing the pursuit of human excellence today. Joining the discussion today is Ryan Sheckle, host of the Every Breath Counts podcast, an ultra marathoner, and all-around human badass thriving in life while dealing with the very rare cystic fibrosis. So let's get ready to learn and grow together. This is the Daily Mastermind. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the show. Ryan Sheckle is in the building with me, as always, U.S. Navy retired Chief Carl Blea and the lovely iTopia founder and CEO Claire Rogers. Welcome to the show, guys. How are we?
It's great. Woke
Absolutely
up.
Amazing.
Good day.
I love it.
It's a privilege to be here.
Ryan,
Yes.
Welcome to the show. Today, we're going to be talking about the pursuit of human excellence. It's a great topic. And I think the more that I come to study Stoicism and philosophy, I've come to find there is an overarching common theme, which is to push ourselves to be the best that we can be in life. Ryan, I'll give you the first chair. What do you say?
Yeah, it's crazy. I've got this weird idea that do any of you guys know exactly how fast the world spins on its axis?
I don't.
No.
It's 1,000 miles an hour.
Wow.
1,000 miles an hour. So it's interesting when you think about that, because if you're moving still, kind of along this idea of the pursuit of human excellence, like if you're not moving, if you have no momentum, like how fast is the world going to pass you by if it's spinning at 1,000 miles an hour?
Ooh.
Right? It's a weird thought.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So if I get this right, the world actually is spinning.
Yeah.
Right? Because I've heard of this concept. Isn't this why everything spins when you get dizzy? Like if you do a bunch of circles, you get dizzy.
Maybe. No idea. Could be.
I've heard that somewhere in my life, and I never understood the concept that the world's actually spinning. Because wouldn't we all fall down?
Well, we're part of it.
I'm
right?
dealing with
We're part of
dog.
it. So it's not going to spin under you. Like if you jump, it's not like it is spinning, but you're spinning with it for the most part. And look, I'm not an astrophysicist by any stretch of the imagination. However, I did go see Neil deGrasse Tyson live once.
Nice.
And that blew my mind. But no, I think it just goes to this concept that like human movement and forward momentum in anything that you truly want to do is important. And I don't believe at all that anyone should be stagnant in anything that they feel is important to them.
And I think that, Ryan, you are like the king of no excuses, right? So this isn't an interview, it's a discussion, but I seriously want to know, you live with one of the rarest conditions in the world. Only 70,000 people have cystic fibrosis, right?
Yeah.
And
That's
the life
absolutely
expectancy on that is really short, right?
So it is and it isn't in a lot of ways. And it's funny you say no excuses. Like I was diagnosed at 18 years old, and that's kind of rare. At least it is now to be diagnosed that late. So I was diagnosed at 18 because they weren't testing everyone 39 years ago when I was born. And I didn't have a lot of the symptoms of it when I was born either. So yeah, it's a really rare disease. And now every child that's born is tested for it. But also, when I was diagnosed, the average lifespan was 30 years. So my doctors told me I lived to be 30. I want to say now it's closer to 60 because of the medical advancements
Nice.
that have been made.
And then living with this, you are an ultra marathoner.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
So what is
Yeah, that
for
was
those that
stupid.
don't know, what is ultra marathon?
Oh man.
The word itself scares
okay,
me.
a marathon, right? A marathon, and I think Claire's ran a
Hmm.
couple of marathons. She's a runner as well. Marathon's 26.2 miles, right? So by definition, ultra marathon is like 26.3 and greater. Anything more than a regular marathon is considered an ultra. And the reason that I am an ultra marathoner or considered to be, I guess, is that when I got on this unbelievable new medication 2 years ago, I decided that I wanted to raise money for the foundation that put a lot of research into the medication that changed my life, that flipped my lung function. When I was 2 years ago, I was starting to get not in rough shape, but the decline of health. And my lungs kind of fell to 35% lung function, which is where
Wow.
you start thinking about a double lung transplant. And I got on this medication, and within 3 weeks, it jumped up to 70%, 65%, which is where I was in high school. And I was like, you know what? I'm like a whole new person. So why don't I take advantage of it, raise some money? And I ended up running an ultra marathon, which was 50K, and raised a couple $1,000, I think $5,000 for the CF Foundation. So yeah, 50K, which is what, 31 miles.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's absolutely amazing. So no, there's no excuses here. There's really no excuses in life, because we also see people that have the worst end of the stick that still make the most of life. And it's in the pursuit of human excellence. Like we all have. I just read a statement this morning that blew my mind. That what was that, babe? That was man was made for each other. So teach or tolerate.
Yes.
And so either you're a teacher or you tolerate everybody else. And I think that being a teacher demands that you have better of yourself, right? That you push yourself to be better so that you can instruct and lead and help other people to find their best potential. And I think it's a calling in life that we all have. Some of us have the calling, some of us don't. Some of us need to be tolerant, some of us need to be teachers. But that's the pursuit of human excellence. Carl, you served 20 years in the Navy. I know there's got to be something in there where they were pushing you to be your absolute best, right?
Right. In the military, I had a focus, and it was always taking care of the enlisted and the officers. So it was always pushing myself. As you can see, I love to work out, so I love pushing myself to the limit. I got up this morning, had a great workout, so it's pushing yourself to that limit. It's also having a focus. If you don't have a focus, then how can you pursue excellence? So it's really settling down and finding a focus. And that's where I'm at right now in maintenance. And now I'm trying to find that focus again, because military, real estate, now I got to figure out my next chapter of my life. So right now I'm going for that.
Claire, the pursuit of excellence. You have been through a lot. Claire, for those that don't know, pretty much made her own life at the age of 18, became a model, put herself through school, got into tour management, put herself into a Fortune 100 company. You are the epitome of excellence. Talk about that drive and where people can find it.
I think it's a matter of, if somebody determines in their life, are you just passing through this life, or are you going to actively be a part of life and be part of a change movement of some sort? And I decided from a young age that I want to be a part of a change. I want to advance myself, but I also want to advance others with what I am learning. So on a personal perspective, I went and became a marathoner, did a couple of back-to-back marathons, one after the other and so forth, because I wanted to see how far I could pursue that. I think that you always have to be learning. For me personally, always be learning. If I'm not learning, then I'm stagnating. I'm suffering from inertia, and then I'm not advancing myself. I'm not sharing the knowledge with others. But I think first off, people have to determine, do you just want to pass through life? And that's okay if that's what you want. But if you're passing through life, then you're not pursuing human excellence. Personally, I want to pursue human excellence because I want to have a really, really big life, but also I want to have a big life so that I can help others in some way, shape, or form.
What do you think? And I'd like to get your feedbacks on all this. What do you? How does someone cultivate motivation? How does somebody cultivate inner motivation? Because a lot of people, and I can speak to this myself, because for a long time, and in some areas I still do, lack self-discipline and self-motivation to pursue being the best that we can be. I think every one of us could sit down and say, okay, where do I lack in life, and where am I not being my best? Where am I not pushing myself to be excellent? And being honest with ourselves is the hardest part, I think, sometimes, right? Like nobody likes to look into the mirror and say, well, this is where you suck and this is where you can be better. So Ryan, how would you advise someone to find inner discipline, inner motivation to be their best?
I kind of want you to elaborate on this, because I in a way I don't believe it. I don't believe that people lack inner motivation. I think that I think, and look, it may just be my own naivete. I think everybody's motivated. I think everybody wants to be great. I have yet to meet a person in this world who doesn't want greatness for themselves. I have met very few people who know how to make that happen.
And I guess that's and see, I think
I can
I
answer this
agree. I
question.
think that most people do have they want it. They don't know how to. I guess I'd say some people, they don't know how to find that inner fire, that discipline to do it, because it's like forming a habit. I think Claire has told me it takes 66 days.
Correct.
66 days to form a habit. So for someone to run every day for 66 days to make it a habit, where do they find that inner discipline? How would
Can
you
I
advise
answer?
someone to find that? Go ahead.
Can I answer, because then I can dovetail, and then Ryan can dovetail to me, because
Sure.
Ryan needed some further context. I think, and Sonny, you and I have talked about this. For myself, I think for a lot of people, you have to hit rock bottom in order to become motivated, and a lot of people have not hit rock bottom. So once you hit rock bottom, so in my case personally, I found myself curled up on my bathroom floor, suffering from panic attacks that then became daily panic attacks, so 5 or 6 times a day, and I couldn't predict when they were going to happen. And initially I thought, I'm going to read my way back to health, and I'm going to get knowledge on this to figure it out. And I discovered during that knowledge that, hey, your system is flooded with fight or flight. It's full of cortisol and adrenaline. So for me, logically was, you need to burn that off. So I went from literally, I will only run if a bad man chases me, to now I'm going to run a marathon, and I am going to get myself off that bathroom floor, and I am going to rebuild my life. And that's how I became motivated. And I know, Sonny, you've said the same thing. You have to hit rock bottom in order to get motivated. And then once you get motivated, it's like a rocket gets lit within you, and then you become invincible. At least I feel invincible. Like, hey, if you can run a marathon, you can do anything now.
I firmly believe in the rock bottom theory, because in my whole life I didn't have the discipline or the motivation to be better than I was until I find myself in prison in the hole for 5 years staring at the wall. That's absolute rock bottom to me. And it's like, now I get motivated to do it. How can we help people? And Ryan, this is where I was going with this. How can we help people to find that motivation without having to experience the tragic loss? Or is the tragedy part of the process?
Yeah, I don't think it has to be. I actually had an amazing guest on my podcast. Actually, I believe the episode came out today. I interviewed him a couple weeks ago, and he is an expert in problem solving. And I think that's kind of what we're talking about now, is solving a problem. It's solving this motivation problem. And one of the things he said was, he brought up this quote from Albert Einstein. And it was, if I had an hour to solve a problem, I would spend 55 minutes identifying the problem, and it would be easy to solve it in the next 5 minutes, right? So, okay, well, let's kind of dovetail that idea into what we're talking about here. So why aren't we motivated? Well, do we have a purpose? Do we have a mission? Do we have a goal in our life? What do we have? What do we want our life to look like? If you haven't done the work and understanding where you want to go, then how can you be motivated to take action to get there, right? It's that whole idea of, what is it? Shoot for the moon and you'll end up amongst the stars, right? Because if you don't know where you're going, if you don't know where you want to be, you have no idea. It doesn't, you're just throwing darts, right? You have no idea what actions you need to take. So I think if
have a
someone
plan.
truly, I think if someone truly doesn't know, well, then they really need to take a long, hard, deep dive into asking why. And I had this strategy I like to use, and I just call ask why like a 2-year-old, right? Like they're relentless. They never stop.
They do.
Why?
They
Why?
do.
Why?
They do.
Why? Why? Right?
Right.
Well, to
Right.
the point where and you get frustrated and you're like, so hey, do you want to go out? Let's go outside. Why? Well, because it's nice outside. Why? Well, because the sun is up. Why? And eventually you're gonna be like, you're just gonna want to shake them, but you're gonna be at the core of that why. So what is your why? You know? Make a mission statement for yourself if it's going to help. I mean, it sounds corny, right? But if you can kind of create a mission statement for yourself, then you can at least put the steps in action to go after it.
Have a blueprint. Carl, what do you think about that?
I look at my Navy career, and if I didn't make a decision at 17 and have a focus, I knew that I didn't want to rely on anybody for the rest of my life. So I think I had a myopic way of thinking. But at 20 years in the Navy, there was no way out. I was going to always succeed, and I always excelled at what I was going to do, because 20 years, I was just going to rock it. And that's what I did. You know, and then when I got out, I got my real estate license, and I did the same thing, and I rocked it. And so it's really having a focus and really that why. And
we have found two things here: identify and focus. Babe, what would you say the third part to that would be?
Take action. But take action every single day. And what I would also say is, if you're setting objectives for yourself, you know, you've got your why and what you want to achieve, realize that one, it has to become a lifestyle. So it's not just hey, for the next 60 days, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. It actually has to become a lifestyle that you're cultivating. But two, don't focus on the end result, because mostly what people do is they focus on the end result and it feels like it's too far away, and then you'll end up giving up. So if I go back to myself, training to be a marathoner, you know, you're not going to run 26 miles on day one. You're going to start with 3 miles, and then the next day you're going to do 2 miles, and so forth. You know, it's back and forth, back and forth. But if I focus only on the 26 miles the whole time and the 4 hours, you're not going to do it. You have to celebrate your wins along the way and say, hey, you know what? Like today it sucked. I didn't want to run. It was the worst run I ever did, but I still did it. And you keep going and you celebrate your successes every single day. And then eventually you'll realize that you're invincible. And
identify, focus, do. We just came up with that live on the show. Identify, focus, do. We are laying out the blueprint for those of you that are watching on how to pursue human excellence. And it's all, I have to add a fourth part of that, which I've learned from the Stoics, the amor fati philosophy. And if you have studied the Stoics, amor fati is love fate. It's basically love everything. When anything happens, we love it. Because we're going to grow from it and we're going to benefit from it. Everything that is thrown onto the fire becomes fuel for the fire. Marcus Aurelius pointed that out, that everything that happens is part of the process. So when something happens, we say, I love it. Like if your car breaks down, I love it. If you're late for work, I love it. If your boss is a dick, I love it. You love everything that happens because we're going to grow from it. So when somebody we love passes, as crazy as it sounds, when somebody we love dies or gets sick, we love it, because no amount of anger or sadness or resentment is going to bring anybody back. It's not going to change anything. And so it's just learning how to love the process, and we take what we can from the experience that we have to grow with people, healthy, disabled, whatever it is. Amor fati, I'm not going to allow it to prevent me from living my life and making the most of everything, and I'll be better for it. So if we make that a habit through identifying, through focusing, through working, and through loving the process, I think that is a wonderful roadmap to experiencing the best of human potential. What do you guys think about the amor fati concept?
Sonny, I'm curious about this, man, because I've gone through some shit sometimes too.
Sure.
And
everybody has.
When you're feeling you're at like the lowest point, it's really hard to and Jocko Willink uses almost the same thing. Good, right? He doesn't say I love it. Good. It's really hard to say good or I love it when you're like, hey, here's another month in the hole, Sonny, or you're laying on the bathroom floor, Claire. It's like, good. I love it. Not like, Carl, you're going through hell in the military. It's so hard to say I love it. So I'm curious to get your perspective on this, because it's like I don't like. I get that and I believe it, and I don't know if it's more of saying like, hey, this is more of a retroactive, like you're thinking backwards on your life thing to say, hey, I'm glad that happened now that I've gone through it. But man, when you're in the darkest, deepest holes of depression, like it's tough to tell someone to say, I love it.
It is. But if we make it a habit, so if I look back now and I wasn't loving the process when it was happening. I didn't love that it was happening. But if I look back now and if I can instruct someone to make that a habit, because I'm really good at it now. And Claire can attest, not much throws me off. If something bad happens, I'm like, yeah, well, it's part of the process. And I love it. I have to love it because it's part of the process. It's part of the experience of life. And it's a no control situation. If a tree falls on my car, I'm not going to be like, yay, let's do jumping jacks and backflips. But I'm going to love the fact that I now have to go through another part of an experience of life, because I'm not the only person that has ever had their car struck by a tree. And so if I can learn how to make that habitual in every single thing that I do, it becomes more of a habit, so that when something big and bad happens, my first thought is amor fati, love the process. And it may not stifle the pain. It may not stifle the trauma from the experience that happened, but it gives me that break, that momentary break, that so I don't succumb to something else. You know what I mean?
I think
Yeah.
we got an important comment that we have to deal
we
with.
did. I just saw that.
Let me carry on first before you put that up, if you don't mind, Sonny.
All right, go ahead.
In my case with the panic attacks and the depression and so forth, yeah, I definitely did not love that process in the slightest. I wouldn't want anybody to go through what I went through. But from that experience, I've been able to say to myself now, when I go through a rough time, and last year was not the best year of my life, I was able to say each day, what am I supposed to learn from this? What am I supposed to learn from this? Every day I'd ask myself the question, what am I supposed to learn? What am I supposed to learn? What am I supposed to learn? And eventually the answers come. You don't get it that day, but eventually if you just try to embrace that process and say, this sucks and this really hurts, and this is not good what I'm going through right now, but what am I supposed to learn from this? What positive can I learn from this? Again, the answer doesn't come on day one, but eventually it's like the clouds start going away. So
I like it. Carl, do you have anything to add to that? Ryan?
No, I think, after reading that comment by, I think it was Shauna.
Yeah, no, we're going to put it back up here and talk about it.
Yeah, I think that point by Claire was really poignant. And, I heard depression described. Claire, we may have actually talked about it on our podcast episode with you, but I've heard depression described as like being alone in a sea and drowning with like massive waves in a storm. Yeah. And at first, it's tough because you can't swim. You're out there in the middle of the sea and waves are just pounding you nonstop. And at your lowest point, what happens when you're in the middle of the storm is that these waves they constantly hammer and pound you nonstop, and you're gasping for breath and you feel like you're going to drown, and you just don't know what to do. But as that storm starts to move through, the waves get a little smaller, not all at once, a little smaller, and they're still pounding you nonstop. Like that time, as you go through that time, it doesn't stop. It keeps hitting you, but they're a little smaller, and you get a little bit more time in between. There may be a little bit more time in between each wave. And then as the storm continues to move on, the waves get further apart from each other. They're still coming. You're still going to feel it. You're still going to go through that season and the ebbs and flows of the struggle that you're going through. but they get further apart until at some point, and it's not anytime soon. It's a long storm. They finally kind of subside, right? And you know, if you're going through something like that, I think this understanding that it's going to be tough right now. That's it's good to have that understanding and reference, but also know that storms come and go, and
Yeah.
you know, you're not going to be in it forever. You're not.
And as Marcus Aurelius so eloquently put in his book, Meditations, add up everything that you've been through in your life, the worst stuff you've been through. You have been through worse, and you'll be able to get through this, because this storm too is going to pass. It's going to go past. And if I could just piggyback on that, and this is for Shauna specifically, everybody has to make a choice in life. And if that was the path that he chose, what you're supposed to take from this is learning how to deal with it and be an example for other people that are going to have to go through it, and show them how to rise up from that situation. Show them how to heal, how to process, how to grow, how to learn from the process that you're going through, so that somebody else might look to you for inspiration. Teach or tolerate. And in this instance, I would say tolerate, because nothing's going to change the fact that it happened. And you have to dig through it, dig through that pain, dig through the process, and find out the learning experience. There's a learning experience here, and then there's an opportunity for you to teach someone else, maybe the kids that are going to be impacted by the experience. And you can be a teacher in that scenario, in that situation. Just displace yourself from the emotion.
If I may jump in, Sonny,
Absolutely.
if I could say to you, Shauna, I've not been in the same situation as you, but several years ago, I lost my best friend due to a heroin overdose. And that brought a different kind of grief. It was not just a regular grief. I'm sad I've lost my best friend. It also brought a lot of rage and anger on my part, and then a lot of guilt, because I felt guilty for being mad at somebody who had died. I'm imagining, I don't know, and I don't want to tell you how to feel, but I'm imagining you may go through those same emotions as well, feeling guilty or angry or whatever it may be. And definitely what helped me in my situation is I journaled it out. I wrote out my anger and my rage at my friend and so forth. And then I would the next day would write about how I loved him and so forth. And my emotions were all over the place. And it was like a wave, a tidal wave of sometimes happy memories and sometimes bad memories and sometimes anger and sometimes rage. I would say embrace every single one of those feelings. And to Ryan's point, eventually the waves are not pounding so bad. It's not going to happen overnight. And I don't want to minimize your experience in the slightest, because you're going to be in the heart of the storm right now. But eventually the waves will separate and it'll get easier and easier for you. And to Sonny's point, I would again say that at some point you'll be able to be a beacon and a lighthouse for other people who maybe are going through it. And again, it's not going to happen overnight. Give yourself permission to feel those feelings, but just know at some point you're going to be a beacon of hope for somebody else who's going through this.
Facts. Carl, do you have anything to add there, buddy?
And I went through a similar situation. I walked away from a marriage of 14 years, and I had to realize that I was not responsible for this other person in my life, that what he was doing and destructive and destroying his life, I had no control over. It was hard because I cried and I just was really upset at the fact that I had no control over it. And he's still alive today, but he's no longer in my life. So he's gone from my life. And so the hardest thing is to know that I was not responsible for what he did to himself after I left. And that was the hardest thing I had to deal with. But it gets better every day. And I know that it's not easy, but know that as long as you have faith and know that you are not responsible for this. All you are is responsible for yourself, and love yourself every single day. That's all I can say.
And it will get better. And thank you, Shauna, for sharing that with us today. We appreciate it. And again, everything comes full circle with us here. We take the opportunities to teach and to learn and to grow together. I want to thank Ryan Shekel for coming on and having this conversation with us. Carl and Claire, as always, it's incredible. We hope to have you back for more discussions. And we're just here to try to help people learn every day how to master your mind daily, and tips and tricks and tools and all that wonderful stuff that we learn it so that we can share it. And We like to end the show with the final word of the day. Everybody leave somebody with something positive they can take away from the show every day. And Ryan, we'll let you take it away. As you are the guest, go ahead and give a final word to our viewers.
Look, this is this whole topic, it went kind of a couple different ways. But if you're really like I think, if you want to be great, if you are looking for greatness in your life, if you don't want to settle for average, then good, just go get it. I have the motto to make every breath count, and it's twofold. The first part of that motto is that you only have a finite amount of breaths in your life. And no matter what you want to accomplish, you have to use every single one of them to do it. So make every breath count. And the second is, you only have a certain amount of breaths in your life. So be grateful for all of them, because you never know when they're going to be taken from you.
Beautifully said, man. Beautifully said. Carl, final words of the day.
Get motivated and get focused. You can do it.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Claire?
Always be learning. So to become a master at being a good human or an excellent human, master yourself by always learning something. So every day try to learn something, whether you're picking up a book or watching a documentary or whatever it may be. Always be learning, and then you will not stagnate in life.
I love it. I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, amor fati, as hard as it can be, and Ryan pointed out wonderfully to me, is something that I didn't even think about today, about loving the process. Learn to love it. Make it a habit. Whenever you experience something, just tell yourself it's part of the process. I have to love this because it's part of our human experience, this wonderful journey that we all get. Make every breath count and make every moment the most you can. Enjoy it, love it, hurt, feel it, process it, get it out. When you're hurting and you're feeling that emotion, embrace it. Feel it with your whole body, your whole essence, your whole spirit, and then let it go. It's all part of the process. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you tune in to Every Breath Counts podcast by Ryan Sheckle. Ryan, where does that upload to?
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
Just
you can find it on iTunes, Spotify, everything. Amos will grab up links and we'll drop it in the description. You guys can check out Ryan Sheckle. Thank you so much for coming, Ryan. We hope you come back. It was great discussion.
Yep. Thank you.
And thank you, Carl. And thank you, Claire. And thank you to the viewers as always. Remember, this show is going to be moving to iTopia Coaching YouTube channel only starting next Monday. So you've only got a few days to subscribe because this is coming off all platforms. Thank you again to my guests. Thank you to everybody that tuned in and watched. You guys are amazing, and we will see you tomorrow on the Daily Mastermind. See ya. I think the button didn't work.